I personally had no doubts Oregon was going to win the game. Oh, wait, I had a lot of them, but they won anyway.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view post whatever that was. An Oregon win. That's a good thing. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. This episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You'll win that $5 bet if it wasn't Oregon minus 13.5, but Oregon money line, hey, never a doubt, right? Never a doubt. So I keep laughing. I don't know why I keep laughing. I think it's the disbelief running through my body that Oregon won this game. Being a fan is a stupid thing. It's a stupid thing we do to ourselves. But here we are, and Oregon's 11-0 for the first time in quite a while, and well, that was just not pretty. I'll get to all the biggest moments. I'll talk about what's next, but let's deal with the emotional reaction to all of that. Oregon didn't play a good football game. Oregon actually played a worse football game than they did against Maryland last week, but they did it against a better team on the road who was at home, off a bye. But Oregon found a way to win. And there's an idiom in sports. Good teams win, great teams cover. That one's a joke. What it should be is good teams win, great teams win when they shouldn't. Oregon should not have won this football game. I am literally not going to look at a single stat for this show. That's going to be for Monday's show. Because there's so much to get to before you dive into the numbers and key moments and inflection points and all that sort of stuff. But Oregon found a way to win this game. One that before the season, I had pegged as the biggest trap game on Oregon's schedule. And guess what? That's how it looked. That's how it felt. The crowd was awesome. Shout out to Badger fans. They look great. It was a phenomenal spectacle on TV. Jump around is up there with shout, is a great tradition in college football. They were bumping. They made a difference. And shout out to Wisconsin as well. They played a really good football game. They played a really good football game. Oregon was just better. And the Ducks had every opportunity to pull away early in this game. In that first half, it felt like Oregon was just one or two plays away, a stop, a turnover, an explosive play on offense from opening up the game, and it just never arrived. The offense was a dud. It's the worst game of the year for the Ducks offensively since the Idaho fiasco, and certainly it felt a lot like that. But I tell you what, nobody, and I mean nobody, should be on Oregon fans' minds more than Atticus Sappington. One touchdown, and Oregon wins the football game. Yep, there are other guys who stood out and had great performances as well. But Atticus Sappington, I tell you what, second half of last year, you think Oregon wins this game with where the kicking game was at? It wasn't just Camden Lewis. They had some snap issues. Like they were doing all sorts of things wrong. But the kicking game, solid. And one of my keys going into this game, don't have a big goof on special teams. And special teams arguably won the game for Oregon here. Defense is the primary factor, but special teams was a heck of a lot better than the offense tonight. And you know what? That's okay. I'm okay with that. Yeah, the offense stunk. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was good. Find the positive in this. No, it was bad. I don't care who you're playing. You're competing for a national championship. You shouldn't score one touchdown in a game with 3 field goals. Your first 2 red zone trips result in 3 points. Not good. Bad. Not going to tell you otherwise. But I'm pretty thrilled that Oregon won this game. Because this is one that in the last couple of years, doesn't it feel like Dan Lanning would lose? Instead, Dan Lanning wins this game. In the last couple of years, doesn't this feel like a game where the breaks that Oregon wasn't getting would be the reason they don't win the football game? No, once again, they overcame. Just like the Ohio State game. The botch review gave Ohio State 7 points they shouldn't have had, still found a way to win the football game. Yeah, the officials made some questionable calls tonight. I'm going to repeat the same thing until everybody who has ever listened to me talk understands it. Officials are not good, and we should be surprised when they get it right. I have come to that. I got to that point mentally probably earlier this year. earlier this year, but especially once Oregon got going to the Big Ten and we saw the same sorts of issues, same sorts of problems. It's not the reason Oregon won. It's not the reason that game was close. You control what you can control, and Oregon does an exceptional job of doing just that. No Jordan Birch in this game, and yet the defensive line was really good once again. I don't even know what to make of that unit somehow being better than I thought they would be. Like, I hyped them up before the year. This is the best Oregon defensive line in 10 years. How do they look better? How are they just out there doing everything? I've never seen a defensive line deflect this many passes. There was a stat on the broadcast that Oregon is like top 5 nationally amongst Power 4 schools in passes batted at the line of scrimmage. I believe that. Their ability to get pressure, bat passes, be disruptive, take away the running attack, like they can just do everything. And the defense stiffened up when the offense couldn't convert. And man, the offense was out of sync. I mean, Gabriel made a couple of big throws. The downfield shot to Evan Stewart, the 4th down to Terrence Ferguson. What is that throw? No, I mean that in the best possible sense. That's a ridiculous throw and an absurd catch. T-Ferg was awesome tonight. T-Ferg was absolutely awesome. But you know what? Oregon wasn't. They were playing their 8th straight football game, and they won. End of discussion. Be happy with that. Let's see if we can do this. I'm making this point 6.5 minutes into the show, so it's probably too late. But for the YouTube commenters out there, who I love and adore, I engage with you guys all the time. Drop your thoughts below. I love seeing what you guys have to say. Let's save the negativity for Monday when you get out of the emotional roller coaster that was that game. I mean, Oregon was staring down the barrel, if not for an ineligible man down the field. They were staring down the barrel of a 2-possession second half deficit. But they went down the field, or the offensive lineman did for Wisconsin, and then the defense stiffens up against gets stopped. I mean, them's the breaks. Them's the breaks. Penalties went against Oregon. Penalties went in Oregon's favor. It's what it is. It's what it is. They're not good. I'm not going to go on and on about it. I don't expect them to be good. I've seen too much evidence to know they're not capable of being good to expect them to suddenly fix it in 1 week's time. So I think this is a gutsy, gritty. There we go. English is fun. No, I did it again. I could edit this out, but I'm too honest for you guys, or try to be too honest with you guys. Gutsy, gritty win for Oregon. Wasn't easy, never is. And I'll leave with this before I get to the biggest moments of the game. If you look up and say, well, I don't know if Oregon can do X, Y, and Z, the only 12-0 season, which Oregon is 1 game away from with Washington up in 2 weeks' time at Autzen Stadium, the only 12-0 season that Oregon's ever had, with that high-flying, revolutionary offense, Darren Thomas, LaMichael James, Kenyon Barner, all those guys had a stinker on the road against Cal. This was the stinker in conference play. You can't win every Big Ten game by 30 points. It's a good league. Wisconsin is an up-and-coming football program that had fallen down, but we know what Wisconsin can be. It's never been easy to beat Wisconsin. The 3 times Oregon's played Wisconsin in my lifetime on the football field, they beat 45-38, and Russell Wilson, if he'd gotten a Hail Mary off, I'm not so sure wouldn't have found a way to convert it somehow going down the field. 28-27 in the Rose Bowl and 16-13. It's not easy. It's not easy. That's a good program. That is a good, solid team. I'll admit I gained some respect for Penn State with how they played, but even that was also a close game. Wisconsin, they're not bad. Oregon played a bad game and won anyway. And you know what? I watched a certain team in Seattle do that for about 10 weeks in a row, and they went all the way to the national title game. So no, this should not be a feeling of, oh, the cracks are showing. Nah, the bye's coming at a perfect time. Oregon get healthy, come back at home, play Washington, hopefully win the game, go to the Big Ten championship game, and play the winner of Ohio State, Indiana. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. Many of you already have. I haven't gotten your messages yet. I'll get around to them eventually, I promise, but I want to get the pot up first. The biggest moments in this game were myriad. They were sometimes exciting. They were sometimes not so exciting. I have a really important thought on the Dillon Gabriel red zone interception that you need to hear. That's coming up next. Right after we talk about Omaha Steaks. I'm hungry. I called 2 Southern Utah basketball games. They went 1-1. Men's team 4-0 for the first time in program history. So love to see that. But I'm hungry right now Wish I had some Omaha steaks in the fridge. Don't know why I don't. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle. Save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience. They've got everything you want. You can deliver the perfect gift, from legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off at omahasteaks.com. That's site-wide. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at OMAHA, yes, like the Peyton Manning Audible, OMAHA steaks.com, and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. omahasteaks.com. All right, a lot of big moments in this game. A lot of big moments. I got thoughts on the fake field goal. That's coming up. I'm starting with the interception. This was the moment for Oregon to establish a lead, force Wisconsin to be unbalanced on offense and get away from the run game a little bit. I thought Oregon's run defense was overall pretty good in this game anyway. I thought Oregon's defense was good in this game anyway. You go on the road, you hold a team to 13 points and a game-sealing interception. Yeah, I'm going to take that from the defense every day of the week and twice on Sunday, because you hold a team to 13 points, yeah, you should win the football game every time. No questions about it. But Oregon goes down. Their first drive gets field goal. Okay. It was 4th and 6. I'm glad they kicked the field goal. Take points early on the road. See how important that is? I think that's Dan Lanning learning his lesson from the past. But then they go down the field, and it's 1st and goal. And they do this wild shift just so that they can run mesh wheel. And offensive coordinators are essentially doing 27 different varieties of window dressing every single week to run mesh wheel in red zone and short to medium yardage situations. That's widespread in college football, in the NFL as well, but especially in college football, because it's a concept that a quarterback understands. It's a tough play to defend, and they just give it a bunch of different looks. So they run the play that you had a snap, or a sequence of snaps that ended up being just the one snap, of course, inside the 10-yard line where Jordan James didn't touch the football, to me, is absolutely ridiculous. That was shown on Oregon's lone touchdown of the night. Give it to Jordan James? What do you know? Touchdown. Heck, he almost scored. The elbow was down. He almost scored late in the game on that final sequence towards the red zone for Oregon when they kicked the go-ahead field goal, because it's just really hard to tackle. Make them prove they can tackle that guy. And a couple times they did, to their credit. But I thought the running game was solid. Not great, but solid. Good enough. I am not a fan of going inside the 10-yard line and not once giving the ball, having the opportunity to not once give the ball to the guy who has been literally just scoring touchdowns since he set foot on campus a couple of years ago. I don't love that. But in the blame game, for that sequence that kept Wisconsin in it, gave them a big momentum play, took points off the board, the blame is first on Dillon Gabriel and second on Will Stein. And I know I just laid out all the critiques of that particular call. I don't like it. At the same time, here's where you got to be in Will Stein's corner in that particular moment. He calls the play. Justice Lowe is wide open. And if Gabriel puts it on him, that's probably a touchdown, if not 2nd and goal at the 2. And then I would hope they give it to Jordan James. That's a terrible throw. That's not a bad throw. That's a horrifically bad throw. One of the worst Dillon Gabriel's made this year. And he's had some stinkers. They tend to come inside the 10-yard line, and I'm just so thrilled that we're back to being able to be nervous about Dillon Gabriel making a play inside the 10 that'll give the ball to the other team. But Oregon's red zone offense wasn't sharp. And I did, like I said, I don't like throwing it on 1st down. If you run it on 1st and you get stuffed, I'm fine throwing it on 2nd, 3rd, 4th. If you go for it, fine. That's fine. But you got to give that guy an opportunity to show that the offensive line has got a little bit of push and that he can move forward. But Justice Lowe's open, and that's just a terrible throw. You can attribute that to whatever you want. Dillon Gabriel has not been in rhythm the last couple of weeks. Is that Tez Johnson? Boy, it certainly feels like it. I'm going to talk about that more next week on the show. So again, didn't like the play call, but he schemes a guy open. All that stuff, yeah, I think Will Stein has had moments where maybe he gets a little too cute in the red zone, but on that one, kind of hard to argue. You got a wide open guy in a drag. He's 3 yards in front of the line of scrimmage. Put the ball in his numbers, let him run into the pylon. Jordan James probably gets across, throws a block, and leads him in. So That was the first point I want to talk about. Second thing, the fake field goal. No problem. No problem. When I'm watching an Oregon game, I imagine many of you have this as well. A certain play call or a decision can leave this feeling in my chest or my stomach of like, don't like it. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. When they started faking that field goal, I had no reaction. Like I was a little surprised. I was like, oh, they're faking it. But in no world did I look at that and go, what are you doing? This is more foolish Dan Lanning stuff. Nope. I got no problem. First of all, you came up 1 yard short. You can't put somebody else in the holder position because that gives it away. It was something they worked on. The lane was there. Guy made a tackle. He came up 1 yard short. You convert that first down and you win the game. But if you hit the field goal, Wisconsin then has to go the length of the field and get a touchdown, which is what they were going to try to do anyway. Now, of course, there's risk involved with it. But was I comfortable with Lanning taking that risk? I'm not just saying this because Oregon ended up getting a game-sealing interception. I got the text messages and the timestamps to prove it, if you don't believe me. But I hope at this point that you trust me when I say something like that here on the show, at least those of you that have been with me for a while. I had no problem whatsoever pulling that out because I wasn't even thinking about it. I don't know that Wisconsin was thinking about it. They reacted in the moment. There was a lane. Guy just made a good play and you come up 1 yard short. You get one further yard, and that's the greatest Ducks versus them moment in the history of those recaps. And this one, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting as it always is. But in that situation, when failing on the fake field goal, it's not like they were trying to throw it where you have the risk of the ball being run back the other way, which, by the way, you kick a field goal, there's always a risk the other team blocks it and runs it back for a touchdown. Now, the field goal unit had been really good all game long, but that risk is always present. Every decision you make has some sort of calculated risk, and you can't just like it when it works out. And I liked that call. I liked it because I wasn't thinking about it. I don't know if Wisconsin was. It almost won in the game. And then when it doesn't succeed, Wisconsin is still inside their own 20-yard line, having to go the length of the field. Yes, they only needed a field goal to tie the game. But guess what? I don't think Dan Lanning makes that call 2 years ago. Does he make it last year? Maybe. But this year, I think he trusts his defense. And he should have. How could you watch that game and not trust Oregon's defense? I've talked at times this year when people have asked, is this an offensive team or a defensive team? I think 60-40, this defensive-led team. Heck, after this game, it might be morphing into a fully Big Ten squad. 70% defense. That game felt like it was 90% defense, 8% special teams, and 2% offense. Like the milk that I've enjoyed my whole life and is easily the best one, by the way. 1% whole milk, not that they taste that different, but 2% obviously the best. So I think that was a gutsy play call. It didn't work out, but I think in that situation, now, if you'd been closer to the 30 or 40-yard line, no, you kick the field goal. You kick the field goal. But down at the 21, where even if you get tackled in the backfield, they're not even at their own 20, or they'd be around their own 30-yard line. You still got to have faith in the defense. And Dan Lanning did. I think he was justified in doing so. And by the way, it did work out. Because Jamari Caldwell, I think that was his best game as a Duck. Mateo, maybe his best game as a Duck. I'll have to go and rewatch and get final thoughts on that for individual standouts next week. But I thought that defensive line, they won the football game. They stepped up when they mattered most. Last play I wanted to talk about, 4th and 9, T-Ferg, man. Remember last year when there was a question, understandably, about whether Terrence Ferguson would go to the NFL? If Terrence Ferguson is not on the field for that game, I think Oregon loses. And look, a Vegas point spread will never tell you a tight end can be that singularly important. But you and I understand. You and I understand, yeah, T-Ferg's one of the guys that you had to have to win that football game. Like off the top of my head, players that Oregon would have lost that game if they hadn't been there. Mateo, T-Ferg. Those might have been the only two guys. But everybody, there were other guys that had good moments, to be sure. Let me know what plays stood out to you if you want me to break down or talk about them. But yeah, That was a whirlwind. An absolute whirlwind. Like I said earlier, being a fan is so stupid. You have no control over something you're so emotionally invested in. But hey, when it works out, boom! Oregon's 11-0. What's next? What comes next for it? What do you do after this? Well, I'll talk about that coming up next. Right after I talk about FanDuel. Once again, my score prediction doesn't cover the spread at FanDuel in the correct sense. But if you think you can do better than me, you go check them out at FanDuel.com. And now that Saturday's almost over, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So where does Oregon go from here? Get healthy, please. Oh my gosh. Justice Lowe went down almost immediately. Dante Manning later returned to the game, but went down early on. Yeah, let's get everyone healthy. Team looks a little banged up at the moment, as if they've played 8 straight football games, which of course they have. So it's a bye, then it's Washington, and if you win that game, you're in the Big Ten championship game. So the scenarios for that conference title game were playing out in my head. Well, if Oregon loses, this would not be good because Penn State beat Wisconsin. But wait, Oregon beat Ohio State. Would that put them above? Well, what if it's here, there, this, that, the other thing, and whatnot? And Wisconsin did not play Indiana either, by the way. But alas, none of that matters. So Oregon's path to the Big Ten championship game is clear. They need to get healthy. I don't know that there's a player more singularly important to Oregon's future success than Tez Johnson. We've got a 2-game sample size now. Dylan Gabriel's not the same guy without him. That's how it looks. Is 2 games a big enough sample size? When it looks like it did the last couple of weeks? Yeah, I'd kind of say so. 184. I thought he was better against Maryland, but still wasn't the same guy that looked like he could win the Heisman Trophy earlier this year. 184 yards against Maryland. No touchdown passes. An interception. He made some big situational plays. I mean, big time situational plays. But however it needs to happen, Oregon needs to get Dylan Gabriel right again because he is just not the same guy. And this version of the Oregon offense, yeah, you can skate by Wisconsin. You could beat Washington in a couple of weeks, who's got a really good defense, by the way. You could do those things. But what's the ultimate goal? Winning a national championship. You got to get back to playing as they did against Ohio State. And look, Evan Stewart, baller. I mean, just a ball. This was the game I expected him to have last week against Maryland. Like he had 6 catches in the first quarter. In the first quarter of football, he had 6 catches. And it became very obvious that Dylan Gabriel's looking his way. Well, then Wisconsin, with a good secondary and a good pass defense, took him out of the picture, and Oregon wasn't able to adjust consistently, but Tefrig was the go-to guy. The 4th and 9, he had a big 3rd down conversion on a drive for Oregon too. Like, he's just stepped up in such a big way for this Oregon offense, and it's been huge. But they got to keep him healthy. They got to keep Trayshawn Holden healthy. Everybody's got to be healthy, and I understand that there are going to be fans out there frustrated, worried about the passing game. I get that. I am not in full-blown panic mode. I don't even know if I'm in super worried mode yet. The concern level has been raised after this showing. No doubt about it. But Oregon's solutions to get back to that championship level they were playing at for most of the season and have played at for most of the season. And by the way, reminder, nobody plays a perfect football game every week. No one plays their best game every week. Georgia in national championship seasons, who beat Tennessee, by the way, chaos is going to ensue in the SEC championship picture. Nobody plays their best game every week. They just don't. Oregon played a better game than we probably gave them credit for against Maryland, but Maryland wasn't as good of a team as Wisconsin. I think Oregon delivered a similar performance. And look, last week might not have been enough of a wake-up call because Oregon won the game by 21 points. This one better be. This one better be. You were down in the fourth quarter to an unranked team that has not done well against highly ranked opponents this year, but they did well against Oregon. That's college football sometimes. That's college football. I'm not worried about Oregon not covering the spread. It's about finding their way back to what they were earlier this year. I think Dan Lanning should be like Hector Barbosa in the first Pirates of the Caribbean when he's scaring Elizabeth Swann to showing him what they are in the moonlight. And at one point, Barbosa laughs and goes, ha, 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 ha. What are you looking at? Back to work. That's what Dan Lanning should do. He should say, look, we won the game. Oh, my gosh, this is great. Let's get back to work. Let's get back to work. Not bye week, work week. And Oregon has got plenty to work on. Send me all your questions, thoughts. We'll have plenty of time to cover them next week on the show during the bye. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.